Crash Bandicoot is known for a lot of things. Nostalgic platforming, hilarious commercials, fantastic racing, his confusing 2000s era, the Woe meme. But one of the most iconic things the franchise has is its friendly neighborhood plank of wood that protects Crash from all of his enemies. And when you crack that crate open, you hear that classic sound. Aku Aku has been a franchise staple since the very first game, but we almost never talk about his past and how he and his evil twin brother came to be. Today, we're going to slam the time twister into the past and explore the ancient history of these ancient masks. Let's talk about it. Before we begin, Crash Bandicoot lore is, thin. And when I mean thin, I really mean thin. Later games help flesh out his lore in different ways, from little sideways comments, character cameos, the names of some of the worlds, and even in flashback tapes in Crash Bandicoot 4. But everything from before Crash Bandicoot 1 is quite hard to figure out and find. So understand that I have collected as much lore as I could from all of these games. From manuals, early pitches of the titles, and even random textures that actually do expand a little bit on the lore, to try and figure out the story behind these two ancient masks of the Insanity Islands, Aku Aku and Uka Uka. Also, understand that there are some small gaps between these pieces of lore, and I will be trying to fill them in with context from future titles, but if I cannot fill it in at all, then I will make it clear to all of you. Thousands of years ago, there lived a tribe on the Insanity Islands. Within that tribe, there lived two twin shaman brothers, Aku Aku and Uka Uka. At this point in time, the brothers were at peace with each other and assisted their tribe as much as they could. The twin brothers wore two different tribal masks to represent their position within the tribe. If you want an example, take a look at Papu Papu and his headdress. You can see that the mask is clearly fashioned in the same manner as Aku Aku and Uka Uka. As the brothers grew older and their age began to get the best of them, they decided to cast a spell to separate their spirits from their bodies. The reason was likely to continue to serve not only their people, but the entirety of the Insanity Islands. After the spell was complete, their spirits were separated from their bodies and were immortalized. Now, I do need to clarify something. The masks are not quite the spirits themselves. In order to commune with people in this physical realm, the Shaman brothers used the masks that they used in their previous life to communicate with any residents of Insanity Island. This is why there are multiple masks through the levels in-game, but we'll get to that later. Initially, the Shaman brothers lived in peace and harmony, protecting its people and their island sanctuary. However, for one reason or another, Uka Uka seemingly grew complacent and eventually started to corrupt and turn evil. His intention was no longer to protect his tribe or the islands, but to enslave and rule them all. Aku Aku, still being a benevolent protector of Insanity Island, knew that he had to stop Uka Uka, his own brother. Now, the next portion of the story is a bit unclear. Seemingly, at some point in time, a part of Uka Uka's master plan was to summon and use some sort of a giant tree. Now, we do not know what the purpose of this tree was, but it's the event that forced Aku Aku's hand to battle Uka Uka and seal him away. Aku Aku succeeded in foiling his brother's plans, but it brought much sorrow. So, for many years, Aku Aku protected the Sanity Isles alone. Many years later, a pair of reject scientists came to the island, Dr. Neo Periwinkle Cortex and Dr. Nitrous Brio. Cortex was a mad scientist with a chip on his shoulder. He was always seen as a loser by both his carny-based family and his scientific peers. He believed that his theories would work if only someone would approve of his dark and effective methods. So, he ran off and created a base of operations in a seemingly uninhibited Australian island to be able to finally test his quote-unquote unethical theories on the indigenous wildlife. However, his presence caught the attention of not only Aku Aku, but somehow Uka Uka. Now, it is unclear as to when or how Uka Uka approached Cortex. It could have been right when he got to the island. when he was dealing with Crash, or some other time in between. But Cortex and Uka Uka made an alliance. Cortex would release Uka Uka from the prison that Aku Aku put him in, and not only conquer Insanity Island, but the world itself. Cortex's plan was to create an army of mutant animals to try and take over the world and to prove his point to those who said that it would never work. This led to the creation of characters like Ripperoo, Pinstripe, Tiny Tiger, Dingodile, and many others. But the one to lead them, the leader of this mutated animal army, was going to be Willy the Wombat. Actually, according to Cortex, wombat skulls shattered like glass when they hit boxes, so he switched to another marsupial, which was a Bandicoot, and was named, and I quote, Crashworth Cortex the First, or as we prefer to call him, Crash Bandicoot. Aku Aku watched and saw what Cortex was doing to the wildlife, and knew he must be stopped. However, when he saw that Crash escaped from Cortex's lab, he saw an opportunity. He decides to help Crash by leaving crates all over the island that contained Aku Aku's mask, granting Crash a portion of his power to protect him. When Crash collected 3 masks, it granted him enough of Aku Aku's immortal power to be unkillable for a short amount of time, except for pitfalls. Those still kill Crash.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid?
After Cortex is defeated for the first time, Aku Aku takes a liking to Crash and eventually his adopted sister Coco. He takes over as a fatherly figure to the pair of mutated marsupials, protecting them and the islands. However, after the events of Crash Bandicoot 2, Crash, Coco, and Embryo accidentally release Uka Uka by shooting a giant death laser at the Cortex station and it crashing into Uka Uka's sealed prison.
Free at last.
Uka Uka finally escapes and proceeds to try and continue his plans for world domination. It is now up to Crash, Coco, and Aku Aku to try and deter those evil plans. It is unknown what exactly corrupted Uka Uka and why he turned against his own brother. Maybe Entropy traveled from the future to the past and told him about the great power he would have if he betrayed his brother. Maybe there's a certain issue with the spell that was cast on the brothers. We don't know. But maybe in the future, we can get some backstory on these ancient masks, learning more about what happened between them and what caused such a rift between them.
Game over.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I suggest you check out my other video about the history of Dark Spyro. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video and or live stream.